Modern Iran is the world's largest Shia majority nation. Its government derives legitimacy from Shia religious doctrine. Its foreign policy is shaped by networks of Shia movements across the Middle East, from Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen. But Iran was not always Shia. Islam arrived in Persia with conquering armies. In the 7th century, Arab armies advancing under the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab broke the Sassanid Persian Empire at the Battle of al-Qadisiyah. The same Umar, whose name, centuries later, would be cursed in the mosques of Safavid Iran. Within a generation, 4 centuries of Sassanid rule came to an end, and Persia was absorbed into the same caliphate that had governed Medina, then Damascus, then Baghdad. For the next 8.5 centuries, Persia remained part of that Sunni recognized order. The story does not start with an army. It starts with a Sufi order. In Ardabil, in northwestern Iran, a religious brotherhood was founded in the 13th century by Sheikh Safi al-Din al-Ardabili. Most historians agree Sheikh Safi himself was a Sunni Muslim of the Shafi'i school. The Iranian historian Ahmad Kasravi argued that the order's identity evolved significantly across generations, including its claims of prophetic descent and its religious orientation. The pivotal break came 4 generations later. Sheikh Safi's great-great-grandson, Junaid, wanted more than spiritual influence. He wanted political power, and judged that Shia doctrine suited that ambition far better than quiet piety. His son, Haidar, gave that ambition a military form, organizing Turkoman tribesmen into a fighting order known as the Qizilbash, the Redheads, named for the crimson headgear they wore in honor of the 12 Imams. By the late 15th century, a spiritual brotherhood had become a revolutionary movement, preparing to seize a throne. The man who completed this transformation was Esmail. By the time he rose to lead the Qizilbash, his grandfather Junaid and father Haidar had spent 2 generations cultivating something stranger and more intense than formal Shia theology, a belief in which the Safavid leader was not simply a respected descendant of the Prophet's family, but something close to divine. The promised deliverer arrived to set the world right. In some of his poetry, written under the pen name Kathryn, Ismail used language that many scholars interpret as expressing an exalted, even quasi-divine status. Prostrate thyself. Pander not to Satan. Adam has put on new clothes. God has come. This devotion, not careful doctrine, is what turned a religious brotherhood into an army capable of conquering an empire. It would later fall to Ismail's own son, Tahmasp, to suppress some of this same fervor. The messianic beliefs that had helped build the Safavid movement proved increasingly difficult to reconcile with the requirements of a durable state and an emerging Twelver Shia orthodoxy. In 1501, at 14 years old, Ismail entered Tabriz and declared himself Shah. Then he made the announcement that would echo for 5 centuries. Twelver Shia Islam was now the official religion of his state. At the time, this was a radical move. Twelver Shi'ism was a minority tradition in most of Iran. The vast majority of the population had lived for centuries within Sunni institutions and traditions. This was not simply Ismail formalizing the wild, messianic faith of his own army. It was something more deliberate, converting raw devotion into an organized, governable state religion, with trained scholars and formal law in place of unchecked fervor. The conversion did not happen overnight. It took decades, and in places, a century. From this moment, the machinery of the state turned toward a single goal. In many regions, Sunni scholars and institutions faced intense pressure. Some clerics converted, some fled, and others were removed from positions of influence. In certain periods and places, the transition was accompanied by violence. Why did Ismail do it? The Qizilbash elite strongly supported the movement's Shi'i identity, and Ismail's own beliefs were deeply shaped by it. Politics played a role too. The Safavid embrace of Twelver Shi'ism gave the dynasty a religious identity distinct from the Sunni powers that surrounded it. Most importantly, the rising Ottoman Empire. It was political and religious at once, inseparably. Declaring Shia Islam was the easy part. Building it was not. Iran simply did not have enough trained scholars to govern a society by formal religious law, and certainly not enough to replace the wild, messianic faith of the Qizilbash with something more structured and lasting. So the Safavids imported scholars from Iraq, from Bahrain, and from Jabal Amil in what is now southern Lebanon. These scholars built seminaries, trained generations of clerics, and constructed, piece by piece, the religious infrastructure of a new Iran. Among them was a jurist named al-Quraki, who argued that qualified scholars held real religious authority in the absence of the hidden imam. This was not yet the modern idea of clerical rule over the state. That would come 4 centuries later. But it planted a seed, a partnership between throne and scholar, each lending the other legitimacy the other could not claim alone. The Safavid dynasty itself fell in 1736, but what they built into Iranian society did not fall with it. Every dynasty that followed, the Afsharids, the Zands, the Qajars, even the modernizing Pahlavis in the 20th century, inherited a country that was, by now, genuinely and irreversibly Shia. Not imposed from above anymore. Simply what Iran was. And one question kept resurfacing, generation after generation, never fully resolved. In the absence of the hidden imam, who actually has the right to rule? The king? The scholars? Both. This Safavid legacy did not only pass through politics and law, it passed through identity itself. Over the centuries, Shi'ism in Iran did not remain simply a state policy handed down from the Safavid throne. It gradually fused with something older, Persia's own memory of itself, going back long before Islam arrived. Some Iranian thinkers came to see this fusion as a problem. Ali Shariati, one of the most influential intellectuals behind the 1979 revolution itself, drew a sharp distinction between what he called Alid Shi'ism and Safavid Shi'ism. Alid Shi'ism, in his view, was the original revolutionary faith of Ali and Hussein, a call to justice. Safavid Shi'ism, he argued, was something else entirely. Ritualistic, submissive, and, according to his critics' summary of his argument, saturated with Persian anti-Arabism, with stories fabricated to elevate the status of the Persians above the Arabs who had first carried Islam to them. Shariati's critique reveals something important. By the time of the Safavids, Shi'ism in Iran was no longer simply a theological position. For many Iranians, it had become a marker of being Persian rather than Arab, a faith that let them belong fully to Islam while still holding on to a distinct identity, separate from the tribes of Arabia where the religion began. Scholars studying Iranian nationalism have observed the same pattern repeating into the modern era, a recurring impulse to frame Shi'ism as something uniquely Iranian, even as something that elevates Iran's spiritual role above its neighbors. Whether one sees this as a corruption of the faith, as Shariati did, or as the natural evolution of a great civilization, absorbing a new religion on its own terms. The result is undeniable. Iran did not simply become Shi'a, it made Shi'ism its own. The Islamic Republic of Iran did not emerge directly from the Safavid state, but it drew upon religious institutions, legal traditions, and debates about authority that the Safavid era helped entrench within Iranian society, and upon a sense of distinct identity that Iran had been building through its own version of Shi'ism for 500 years. A Sufi brotherhood became an army became a state's choice of faith became a nation's idea of itself. The Safavids are gone, their empire is dust. But the question they never fully answered, who rules in the name of the hidden imam, is exactly the question Ayatollah Khomeini claimed to finally answer in 1979. That is episode 3. Subscribe, and I will see you there. I am the Arab Sage.